record this session. Thank you for joining. This is Inasolve's first or second TechShare that we're doing. Today we're just going to go through some functionality for Teams. Mike will present do the presentation for us, and feel free to ask some questions, and we'll go through this. And obviously the idea is to share some initiatives and ideas for each other, and to see if we can build something during this time of crisis. And so I'm going to go over to Mike.
Thanks, Niku, and welcome everyone to TechShare number 2. The Inasolve decided to put these initiatives together in response to the COVID-19 crisis. If you're looking at the statistics in March of 2020, there was a 775% increase in use of Microsoft Teams, 44 million daily users, Microsoft's reporting, and when you look at stats like that, it kind of highlights that potentially companies that had Microsoft 365 and they had access to Teams but potentially weren't using it because there's such a big increase. And that just, to me and to us, sort of highlights that there's probably a lot of people working remotely from home with a lot of inexperience with that type of work and working with Teams. So as a consulting firm, our staff rely heavily on tools such as Teams and Slack in particular, and obviously email, and we use a combination of WhatsApp and phone calls as well to manage communication between the team and to collaborate on projects together. We very seldom are in the same building. We're always off all over the country or all over the state doing different things. So drawing upon our experiences using some of these tools, we thought we might be able to help for some companies where staff might be a little bit less experienced. So hence we've the TechShare sort of series of webinars was born, and hopefully companies find it helpful, and we're open to feedback on them, and we'll ask a question later on what sort of stuff people would like to see. So without further ado, I'll move on. So we thought about how we transitioned into remote working. I mean, everybody has come from different places, and Nico was a consultant with K2, which is a digital processing automation company, and he was very, very experienced with working for lots of different clients in different parts of the country. And I was working in local government previously, and that was sort of office-based, and I was doing a bit of remote work as well. And when we formed Inasolve years ago, we had to set sort of the protocols and things in place for how when we're off working different places, and Emil and different people in the company in different places, how do we communicate? How do we manage expectations and deliverables and all that sort of stuff? So what we've put together in the presentation is a little bit of information around kind of how to transition from an office-based culture into sort of a remote working culture, and how to set those expectations for how people are going to work. Also, if I'm speaking too fast or you're having trouble following, feel free to write a message or to just raise your hand or something, and I'll slow down. So look, the critical thing is planning is very, very important. You need to understand that there's going to be challenges, not just for the people who are now having to work remotely, who might be used to leaning on their team members, but also for the leaders who are have a lot of deadlines and projects and deliverables sitting there, and they don't have that I guess a richer experience of being able to just stop by someone's desk and say, hey, how's it going with project A? So a lot of, even though the sort of lockdown, if you will, was kind of forced upon everyone by the government in various countries, and people had to work from home overnight, there still needs to be a plan in place for how you'll manage your work delivery. How do you communicate with your team and from an IT perspective, do you need to have additional licenses or tools? So some of the tools that we think are really great for achieving these types of things is like Microsoft Teams, Zoom, SharePoint. Some of the Power Platform can be really great as well, with regard to maybe you set up dashboards in Power BI so that you can see completion of things, or even in Power BI you can do what's called call quality dashboard monitoring, where you can consume data from teams and see what's the quality of the service like for your team. How many calls are people having, messages and things like that. So it helps you get an idea of, is the service being utilized, may give you an impression of if there's particular staff that are having low quality, because you can see statistics per person of who's having a poor experience. Other tools that are really useful on an organizational level is things like K2 and UiPath. So K2 is a digital processing automation platform. One of the projects that we rolled out early on for some of our clients with this COVID-19 crisis was a remote working checklist, which we put out there because, you know, HR departments all of a sudden have a lot of paperwork to process for this. You know, people have moving from working in a controlled environment where you have maybe an ergonomic chair and desk set up, and now they're working remotely. And, you know, how does a company manage that, and how do you standardize the agreements? So we put together, just in K2, just a remote working checklist where, you know, you can fill in the person's information. You can, you know, this is the equipment they have, these are the hours they're going to be working, you know, a sort of an indication on contact with the manager sort of thing. It's much more difficult to record this sort of stuff with paper and process it and work through it through the organization when you have suddenly lost access to your normal communication means. So by using something like K2, you set a standard workflow up, you can write it into SharePoint or into SQL, wherever you want to put the documents, and then you've documented that agreement between the manager and the staff member. They're going to communicate twice a day on Microsoft Teams. These are the projects that person's responsible for, because one of the key things with remote working is who's going to be held accountable for which deliverables. And you need to get that stuff documented early on. And we found that K2 is a really great tool for that. Just moving this slide. So from planning on how the organization is going to work remotely, you then move to the individual. How do I work remotely, or how do you work remotely? So from the remote working checklist I showed before, these are the key things that you need to be looking at oops, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to click on that. These are the key sorts of things that you need to assess in a home office. So there's a sort of things like work cover and sort of injury management with people working. You know, if you're working at a laptop, you're going to be looking down a lot, you're going to get sore neck and shoulders. So we used that form to document what the office ergonomic setup was, the communication expectations, and working hours. Working hours is important because when you're breaking up the day with set start time and end time and meetings and lunch breaks, it's very easy to work for 8 to 10 hours at your desk at home because you haven't got that normal breakup of the day. So documenting those things is as much about OH&S compliance as much as it is about who's doing what and when and where and how are they going to communicate that. Also, a key one that we had in there was how will staff manage their dependents. Obviously, kids aren't at school. People might have an elderly parent living with them that has needs. So how are you going to manage that? That might be breaking up your workday into 2 different segments. You work morning and you work afternoon or something like that. And that's a sort of a negotiated sort of contract, if you will, between the staff member and their direct report, their manager. So one of the things we put out with people is this sort of information around making sure you set up it ergonomically. And I touched on that before. If you were to be working with a laptop, you need to get the laptop elevated up so that you're looking straight ahead. You want to get that sort of distance and that nice, the top of your screen should be level with your eye line, so you're not looking down. And again, I mean, that picture is pretty indicative. It shows how you should have your posture. It's also important, remote working, to schedule in time to talk with your team. People have lost the whole water cooler chat, so there can be an opportunity for people to get a bit lacking in motivation, and maybe even feel a bit isolated and even depressed. So it's important to schedule in time that you can stretch, hydrate, have some water, some tea, exercise. One of the key things I find very useful is when I have a phone call with a client or with Nico or somebody is I'll use my phone and I'll walk. Sometimes I'll even walk and go for a walk around the block or something when I'm on the phone, just to get the blood flowing and things like that. And that's really good. It really freshens you up. But you know, one of the key things is you're working from home. You now have to maintain your work-life balance in your home. So one of the good things for that is setting up a separate workspace, separate to your living areas. So at the end of the day, you can log off your computer, close the door to that room if it's a room, and once you've left that, you've left work for the day. You don't have a constant reminder of seeing a laptop on a desk or on a bench sort of thing that's your work, and you know, you get tempted just to go and check emails and stuff that way. So I'll touch on routine a bit more in the next slide. So Nico wrote a post a while ago about what he finds the best way he finds to manage his routine is to get up and start your day like you would if you're going to an office. So, and that's the truth myself as well. So for the little graphic on the right hand side there, I mean, if you were going to an office, what would you do in the morning? You would have an alarm set, you get up, get yourself ready, and then travel to work. It's the exact same when you're working from home. Follow a set routine, and you can more easily manage your time. You can manage the people you live with. It helps you to manage your free time and work time with regards to meeting requests as well. And also, when you get to the evening, you need to be able to switch off. So if you're having a set routine, you'll get around to 5 o'clock in the evening, and it'll just naturally be, okay, time to switch off. Work's done for the day. Go spend time with the kids. Go walk the dogs, whatever you do in the evening. And it's so true. I mean, I've worked through projects where I wasn't able to maintain a routine because we had maybe we're doing a tender and things like that, and it does have a very big impact on you when you are working 10 and 12-hour days from home, because you're very conscious of the fact that the family's around you and missing you, sort of thing. So a routine really is very, very helpful for your work-life balance and your sense of well-being as well. So flowing from that into good practices for remote working, and at Inasolve we have used a combination of Slack for Business at one point as well, and Teams. Teams is our main go-to tool these days. We use it really heavily. To put it in perspective, we hold a lot of meetings with externals, customers, other vendors and stuff, partners over Teams. We use Teams to share and collaborate on files. When we do tenders and things like that, we set up a new team specifically for the tender, and we set up channels within that for chat on specific parts of the tender, and we share files through there. So the great thing about using Teams for that, of course, is all the files get stored in the SharePoint on your Office 365. So more than one person can open that one file, for example, an Excel file. If you open up in Excel application, you can see everyone who's actually editing the file at that time. You can see the cell someone else is working in, and you can all work on it at the same time. So that's why we love using Teams for this sort of work. And I'll show you some tips for Teams up here. So with regard to when you're doing video conferences, it is actually a good idea to record them, because you may have people who are in absentia who couldn't attend for whatever reason. If you record the meetings, they are saved in Microsoft Stream, which you have available in the left-hand bar of Teams. And then it becomes a bit like a podcast. People who couldn't attend the meeting can then go in, they can review the recording of the meeting, and then they can keep up to speed. Particularly because, you know, it's not necessarily easy to, if you're having a lot of online meetings, to take minutes for every single one and send them out to everybody who may have been interested. So the recordings are really useful for that. Also, if you're having meetings with externals as well, and you're potentially agreeing on particular deliverables and stuff, having a recording of who said what and when they said it is really good, because you have something to go back on if you are trying to reference what was promised in the meeting, sort of thing. So simple to do. You just click on if you look here where my cursor is, there's a 3 ellipses button at the bottom, which gives you your more options when you're in a video call on Teams, and you can just go to start recording. It's pretty straightforward, really. I'll move on to the next one. The other one is, and I'm happy to say everyone's observing this in this meeting, microphone etiquette. So I think we've probably all been in a meeting where someone forgot to mute their microphone, and you get a lot of background chatter, a lot of background noise. I've even heard like fish tank pumps and everything being picked up by microphones. The thing is, the computer, if it's picking a quiet noise, it'll amplify it. So even something like sound of an air conditioner running or a fan running will sound like a hurricane through a microphone after a while. So it's really, really critical to avoiding distraction for the people in the meeting that you mute your microphone, and it's a bit like speak when spoken to or raise your hand. Interestingly, the raise your hand feature is going to be added by Microsoft Teams later this year. It's not currently there, but it is available in Zoom. So I'll move on to the next step. So blur or set a background video. So I'm sure everybody's seen this video here. This is of Professor Kelly. It was recorded in 2017 on the BBC. And it's really, really effective way of highlighting why you should blur the background of your video. If you don't remember, I'll play it for you. It's only a short video. This is actually a Microsoft. So it just shows. So that video is very clever marketing by Microsoft. In the original video, his kids came in and his wife came running in to get the kids, and it was really quite funny. But it just highlighted, if he had background blur available, he could have you wouldn't have really known. You might have seen a little bit of yellow blur, and that would have been about it. But it's really distracting to people in your meetings. Even seeing the background of your house, like people will be like, "Oh, look, he's a fan of Aerosmith or something." There's a poster on your wall. So. You have 2 options in Microsoft Teams. One of them is to blur your background. The other one is to use a custom background. They're both available by that triple dot, the ellipses button that I showed before. And then on the right-hand side, you can choose to blur your background, or you can choose to show background effects. And background effects gives you that sort of effect there. At the moment, there's about 10 different backgrounds that are standard in Microsoft. You can't upload your own one yet, but that's coming. You can do the same thing in Microsoft, in Zoom. Zoom, it's called a virtual background, and in a virtual background, you can actually set like an organization's default background that everyone has and no one can change. Or you can allow users to set their own, but that's coming to Microsoft soon. You can currently use the sort of the 10 default ones, but the upload your own, like your corporate logo or something, is coming soon. Okay, so another key thing, which particularly with Microsoft Teams, I find really useful, and I know Nico does, is knowing some of the keyboard shortcuts. Because sometimes when you're in a screen share, it's not easy necessarily to find things in the side menu with Teams and then get back to your call again. So, being able to turn on background blur with Control-Shift-P, mute your microphone with Control-Shift-M, or turn your camera on or off with Control-Shift-O. Really useful to do quickly, because sometimes it's not necessarily easy to find things in the menu in the heat of the moment when you try to do something. There's a lot of other ones as well. You can do Control-6 will open your recent files. So if you're collaborating with someone and they've just uploaded a file, you can Control-6, bring the file up. It's really handy. And the other thing that you can do really well with shortcuts is at the top of Teams is a search bar, and in that you can just do use @ to mention someone's name and type their name in, and you can send them a message directly without having to go and open a chat. You can just send a message in there, which I find useful when I'm having a meeting with somebody and somebody's trying to call me. I can just say, "Hey, I'm in a meeting with somebody else," and it's like a quick way of being able to send the message without interrupting your meeting. One of the key selling points of Teams is the ability to use apps within your teams and within different channels in your teams. So I mean, there's bots you can use. There's a calendar bot which you can actually use where it checks everyone's calendars. That's it there. And when you're scheduling meetings, it can see who has conflicts and stuff. There's AI bots that can answer questions. There's all sorts of really cool things. But for people who are trying to work from home and you're trying to manage teams, I mean, to be able to put things like I've mentioned here, Wunderlist, Power Apps Planner, OneNote, some Dynamics into Teams so that everyone can share things in a central place. Planner essentially gives you like Kanban boards, so you can basically set tasks to people and monitor completion on them. And there's this really good Power BI dashboards and stuff available with Planner, which shows you sort of the percentage that things are sitting at. So this is one of the really great things. I mean, if I was using Zoom and moving it to Teams, this is one of the key reasons I would go to Teams, is just for these integrated apps. They're really, really fantastic. And the other thing I was going to say was, you know, if you have like a collaborative team, but you are sending emails out, say to a vendor or an external party, is really what you can do is you can get the email address for a channel in Teams. So you just go to the channel itself, right click on it and say get email address under the more options. And then that email address you could just use in Outlook and email it, and it actually gets put into Teams like that. And what happens then, you can actually view the original email in and it'll open in Outlook for you so that you can reply to it. Or if you want to actually start a thread on it, you can click reply, and then you and your team can actually write comments about that email. You know, so it might be you've got an invoice from a supplier, and the invoice comes into Teams, and you might reply and say, you know, who authorized this, and and you can start a conversation that people can reply and attach an image of an approval and stuff like that. So that sort of stuff you would normally be able to do in the office very easily. Hey, who did this? Not as easy remote, but if you use this sort of functionality and use the reply functionality, you can actually discuss things much more easily. Then otherwise you have a big email trail going around to everybody, and it's messy. Another thing is, you know, you still want to keep that sort of fun team aspect there, where people are interacting as people. You're not just like an icon on the screen, and people want to have a bit of personality in the office. So this is a really brief one. You can make your own memes. Basically, these are stickers in Teams, and you can choose them and add your own text to it. You know, you can use animated GIFs. Just enhances that and enhances a bit of the fun of collaborating together, and also enhances the it kind of emphasizes if you're happy about something or not as well. So just make it a bit more like an actual work team experience. You can share with a bit of emotion and stuff like that, and show a bit of personality. That's what I was looking for before. So I mean, if you're not familiar with Teams, but you are looking to implement it or wanting to explore it a bit, Microsoft actually has a demo tool which you can access on this link down here. And what this does is it's a bit like a structured run through where it's interactive. You can click on things, but it kind of highlights the key features of Teams. And I just took a screenshot of it here. You know, this is how it drives you through it. You have these different sort of slides. You can go next and previous, but at times it lets you type into it and actually interact with its presentation. So if you're evaluating Teams and you don't already have it, I think this is a really great way to have a look at the way it works and get a good idea of the features. Otherwise, you know, if you have questions, we're really happy to provide some feedback from our experience with Teams. Just to send an email through to Emil or Nico or myself, and we can certainly follow up with that. But yeah, so what's next? So what we were looking at doing next, and we're happy to be guided by the audience on this a bit, but we were looking at doing sort of utilization data for Microsoft Teams, how to use sort of call quality dashboard and that sort of thing, because one of the things that speaking with some of our clients is they have people remote working, but the directorship and maybe the management don't feel 100% comfortable yet because it's new to them, and they just want to feel comfortable that the actual people are logging in every day and doing work. So one of the ways that we can actually monitor this with Office 365 is using the Graph API and also using some of the call quality data as well. So that's what we're thinking about going to next. You know, feel free to send through suggestions. You can reply to Nico's email from this morning if need be. But yeah, that's what we've got. And it was I was trying to keep this brief, and I think I've just got into the half hour. Does anybody have questions? I don't see any hands coming up. So if there's no questions, then what we'll do is we'll get the content together for the call quality and the Graph API information, and we'll get that ready to go for next week. But you know, on behalf of Inasolve, you know, I really like to thank guys for attending, and hope everybody is keeping safe and adhering to the isolation protocols that are in place, and with a bit of teamwork and you know, patience, we'll get through this together, and we can all get out and meet up in the real world in the not too distant future. I'll hand back to Nico now if he wants to say anything.
Thanks, Mike. No, that's pretty good. So yeah, we've got a next session, I think next week and Wednesday, same time. We did record the session, so we'll put that on YouTube, and we'll basically send that out to everybody that's subscribed. And yeah, let's take care, and we'll see each other next week.